Welcome to History Teller. Here, we explore the past to learn and remember.
All right, let's jump right into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to look at a truly terrifying but frankly fascinating reality. We're talking about the idea that the structural tripwires of the year 1914 are resetting themselves right now, today. We're calling this the 1914 mirror. I am absolutely pumped to unpack this with you, mostly because understanding these historical patterns, it completely changes how you view your daily newsfeed. We're going to break down the complex underlying forces that are shaping global stability right now. So let's get started. First, just think about the sheer psychological overlap between these two eras. On one side, you have 1914. Picture early factories, horse-drawn carriages sharing the road with brand new automobiles, and a massive, booming era of global trade. People back then felt this incredible, almost arrogant sense of untouchable progress. Now flip over to 2026. We've got glowing smartphone factories, hyperconnectivity, a digital economy that literally links continents in milliseconds. In both of these eras, everyday citizens and top leaders genuinely believed that nations were just far too financially interconnected to ever go to war. I mean, why blow up the world when everyone is getting so wealthy trading with each other, right? That was the prevailing logic back then, and honestly, it's the prevailing logic now. But as history shows us, that logic didn't exactly hold up. Which brings us to the shattered illusion, from untouchable peace to global crisis. And that kicks off Pillar 1, the Clash of Giants, understanding the power struggle. To really grasp this power struggle, we need to look at a vital concept from academia known as Thucydides Trap. Now, this is the dangerous friction that occurs whenever a rapidly rising power threatens to displace an established ruling power. And look, this isn't about good guys and bad guys, it's just an objective structural tension. Whenever the reigning global champion feels threatened by a newcomer who's growing incredibly fast, that dynamic creates an underlying friction that makes conflict almost inevitable. It's a pattern literally as old as recorded history. So, what does this trap actually look like in practice? Well, in 1914, the established superpower was Great Britain. They were the undisputed heavyweights, controlling the world's oceans and global trade. But then you had Germany, heavily industrialized, unifying, and rapidly expanding its navy to demand its place in the sun. That was the core friction. Now, let's fast forward to 2026. We're literally just swapping out the empires. Today, the established power is the United States, and the rapidly surging power is China. And instead of clashing over coal and early dreadnought battleships, the friction today is over semiconductor supply chains, supremacy in artificial intelligence, and naval dominance in areas like the South China Sea. It is the exact same structural friction, just played out with modern pieces on the board. Which smoothly transitions us to Pillar 2, the tripwire alliances, from spark to wildfire. Because here's the thing. Empires clashing doesn't automatically equal a world war. Friction alone just isn't enough. What turns a localized spark into a devastating global wildfire is a system of secret, incredibly rigid defense alliances. Just look at the insane 30-day escalation of 1914. On day 1, an Austrian archduke is assassinated by a Serbian nationalist. It's a localized, regional tragedy. But watch how fast the dominoes fall. By day 15, Austria attacks Serbia, which forces Russia to mobilize to protect Serbia. By day 30, because of the rigid, interlocking mutual defense pacts of the time, Germany, France, and Britain are all violently dragged right into the war. Absolutely no one woke up on day 1 wanting a global war, but the tripwires snapped, and the system did exactly what it was wired to do. 30 days is all it took. And, we are definitely not operating in a vacuum today. We have incredibly rigid, highly militarized networks right now. On one side, we've got NATO with its strict mutual defense obligations. On the other, there's an increasingly aligned Eurasian bloc. We're talking Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea. And much like the Balkans back in 1914, we have modern flashpoints today. The Taiwan Strait, the borders of Eastern Europe, the shipping lanes of the Middle East. A localized spark in any of these areas today wouldn't just stay local. Because of these modern alliances, a spark could instantly activate these militarized networks and drag the world's largest superpowers into a direct confrontation. The tripwires, folks, are already set. And this naturally leads us into Pillar 3, the technology blind spot, rewriting the rules of engagement. Now, this is honestly perhaps the most dangerous parallel of all. When you combine geopolitical tension with rigid alliances, and then you pour rapidly evolving, deeply misunderstood technology onto the fire, that is a recipe for disaster. The decade leading up to 1914 saw a dizzying arms race. The invention of massive dreadnought battleships, rapid-fire artillery, and machine guns fundamentally changed the actual physics of warfare. But the generals of the time just didn't grasp it. They thought wars would still be fast, decided by heroic cavalry charges. Instead, their shiny new technology created a bloody, years-long stalemate. Contrast that with 2026. We are undergoing a massive, quiet technological shift today. We aren't just dealing with slightly bigger bombs anymore. We're talking about autonomous drone swarms, agentic AI making proactive decisions in command centers, and hypersonic missiles gliding at Mach 5. Missiles so fast they entirely bypass traditional radar defense systems. So the core danger here is this. Military leaders are using escalatory tools that they do not completely understand yet. Just like those cavalry-minded generals of 1914 who literally marched millions of men into machine gun fire because they didn't get the new rules of engagement, today's leaders are playing with autonomous and hypersonic tools that are rewriting the rulebook way faster than global laws can keep up. Think about it. If an AI system mistakenly perceives a threat and launches a hypersonic countermeasure at Mach 5, there is simply no time for human diplomacy to step in. There's no time to pick up the red phone. So where does this leave us? Well, we are undeniably at the crossroads. Two paths for tomorrow. Based on these historical parallels, we're essentially looking at two distinct outcomes. Path A is the slide into kinetic conflict. If diplomacy fails, the modern global economy, as we know it, simply disintegrates. Because we are so hyper-dependent on global supply chains today, a hot war wouldn't just be fought by soldiers on a battlefield. It would mean instant hyperinflation, completely broken supply chains, and a sudden, terrifying halt to global food and energy distribution. It would violently disrupt the daily life of literally every civilian on Earth. But, thankfully, there is Path B, which relies on modern guardrails. History definitely rhymes, but it doesn't actually have to repeat. Today, we have nuclear deterrence, which, let's face it, forces superpowers to calculate the true cost of total annihilation. And we have instant, real-time communication between capitals to clarify those deadly misunderstandings before they spiral out of control. And because of those modern guardrails in Path B, leaders today who are intensely aware of exactly how World War I started are much more likely to steer us away from a hot war and into a completely new reality. The world is actively splitting into two distinct economic and technological ecosystems, the West and the Eurasian bloc. Basically, this is Cold War 2.0. Rather than a kinetic global conflict, the much more likely outcome is a deeply fractured, segmented world where the internet, supply chains, and tech ecosystems are divided right down the middle, just to avoid a direct, catastrophic clash. And that brings us to the ultimate takeaway of this explainer. Peace is not the default state of the world. It is a fragile structure that requires active, daily maintenance. The historical mirrors we've explored today, the power struggles, the rigid alliances, the runaway technology, they exist to warn us, definitely not to doom us. By really understanding the tripwires of 1914, we are far better equipped to recognize and dismantle them in our own time. So, I want to leave you with this one provocative thought. Are our modern guardrails, like nuclear deterrence and real-time communication, actually strong enough to prevent a 1914 scenario? Or are we already sliding down the tripwire? It is a heavy question, I know, but an absolutely vital one. I want you to think critically about these historical patterns, and I'd love to hear your perspective on this, so please share your thoughts below. Thank you